Hello, we are group number 4. Our group comprises of Manuela, Nick, Tom, and myself, Carter, and we will be presenting on Microsoft as this slide indicates. Microsoft was founded by two men, Paul Allen and Bill Gates. They were childhood friends with a passion for computer programming. They originally founded a business they called Trafodata in 1972, which eventually they renamed and better developed into a small business in 1975, and that was when Microsoft was born. The company vision was for a personal computer on every desktop in every home. In 1975, personal computers were not a very common thing, and fast forwarding to 2016, we don't only have individual and personal computers, but our phones are now computers as well. A few things that Microsoft has done over the years that has been important in their development is in 1980 they created the MS-DOS. In 81 they became a corporation. In 1986 their stock went public, and they launched Office XP in 2001 and Windows Vista in 2006, among many other important developments in the company's history. So, from a small, out of a garage business in 1972 and 1975, Microsoft has become a very large company and eventually became a corporation, as we mentioned earlier, in 1981. Their stock went public in 1986, making them a more publicly known entity. And Microsoft hasn't only continued to grow, but has begun to expand and diversify into other markets, such as gaming consoles with Xbox in 2001. Microsoft has also made multiple acquisitions over the years with different functions such as Skype or the company Nokia in 2013. So after becoming a corporation, Microsoft functioned in a U-form structure. But back in 2013, it was announced that Microsoft was going to switch to a One Microsoft or a F function or M form structure that allowed them to focus on products and services in specifically to be able to strive to improve those divisions by allowing them to focus directly on specific products or services that each division had to offer. Great quote from the Vice President T.K. Rengarahan said, "Give us the feedback and hold us to high standards. High standards are our friend. It's what we owe to our customers and our MVPs." Microsoft is all about trying to become a better company, and going to a M-form structure was one of the strides that they hoped would help them to become better. So we will be going into the ways that Microsoft can be improved through different evaluations such as VRIOs and TOEs. We're going to start off with TOEs by measuring strengths and weaknesses against threats and opportunities, giving a more beneficial look at the company in questions and opportunities in different giving a more beneficial look at the company that might be in question to show opportunities where growth can be developed. Using this grid, we will strive to find new ways to help Microsoft to grow further. And with that, I will turn the time over to Manuela.
I'll be talking about threats, opportunities, and weaknesses. So Microsoft faces a lot of threats, especially when talking about alternatives to its products and services, and also when talking about competition. One of Microsoft's biggest threats could be considered its number one competitor, as many of you might know, Apple. In comparison to Microsoft, Apple has shown their entire value chain, while Microsoft is dependent on hardware developers such as Dell, HP, and Lenovo to deliver a finished product to its customers. Apple offers a clean, complete, and attractive product in which hardware and software flow together due to being developed by the same company. On the other hand, Microsoft develops that software and then needs to rely on hardware manufacturers to sell a complete product to their customers. In other words, manufacturers have the final say on how the software is going to flow with the hardware. Customers might want to switch to Apple if they want to obtain a higher end product and service, and to be with a company that is in charge of their whole value chain. Another one of Microsoft's biggest threats is piracy. Microsoft is constantly filing lawsuits against individuals who are stealing and illegally activating thousands of Windows and Office licenses. Product keys are being activated outside of its intended geographic region, and they're being stolen from the company's supply chain. Also, they're being used more times than legal. So, piracy is a never ending issue for all of Microsoft's divisions. In addition, innovation from competitors is a big threat for Microsoft since they have to maintain industry standards at all times and excel at what they do in order to stay strong in the technology market. Opportunities. So, Microsoft has a lot of opportunities, especially when counting with such popularity. Microsoft has been doing great with their cloud services, Microsoft Azure, by being number one in cloud computer services. However, they only have a temporary competitive advantage. A big opportunity for Microsoft is to expand their cloud services and make it a sustainable competitive advantage in order to have more favorable long-term position in the market in comparison to other competitors. In addition, another big opportunity that Microsoft has is to innovate their smartphones. They have the option to enter higher end markets by developing a more tailored product. And also, since Microsoft is a very popular brand, they can take advantage of that and promote their products and maybe compete with higher end smartphone brands such as Apple, which manufactures just the Apple iPhone. Another big opportunity is acquisitions. Microsoft has been doing a great job when acquiring new services such as Skype, Nokia, Mojang, and their latest and future acquisition, LinkedIn. Microsoft is planning to integrate LinkedIn to Office 360, which presents a huge opportunity for them. Weaknesses. Like any other company, Microsoft also faces a lot of weaknesses. One of them is that it's hard for Microsoft to keep innovating. This is mainly because it is costly and time consuming to develop new versions of products and services. It requires a lot of time, research, development, and of course investment in order to deliver a product or service with excellent standards and quality, like Microsoft has always tried to do. Another one of Microsoft's weaknesses, and maybe one of the biggest one, is that their dependency on hardware manufacturers. Microsoft highly depends on hardware manufacturers. Hardware manufacturers are the ones who decide how to make everything work together after Microsoft delivers its software. So Microsoft doesn't have a lot of say after they deliver the software. Another one of the weaknesses is the loss of popularity of newer versions of Windows. So Microsoft has gained its impressive popularity over the years due to their operating system. They were very successful with their older versions, Windows XP and Windows 7. Windows is the most used operating system in the whole world. And more, about 70% of all Windows users utilize the older versions of Windows, so XP and Windows 7. And they have left Windows 8 and Windows 10 behind. This is something that can open a big door for competitors, and then it can present like bigger opportunities for them too. So now I'm going to hand this over to Nick, who is going to be talking about strengths and introducing Brio.
Well, As she said, I am Nick, and this is group 4, just in case you forgot. We're going to go ahead and just speed on through here to strengths. One of the big strengths that Microsoft has is actually their ecosystem. A good example of this is if I want to use Office, I need to use their Windows operating system to accomplish that. Although in more recent years they've loosened up on this restriction, some of the effects of that ecosystem still exist today. Microsoft also is one of the first companies in the personal computing area, and this actually almost created this natural monopoly for them as they were the first ones there. And as they continued to grow, that monopoly got even bigger. Today is a good example where they're still pretty dominant in this industry as far as all their software goes and the things they offer. Microsoft also has a very strong name in the industry, and there isn't anyone that really doesn't know about Microsoft, the company, or the software they provide. Lastly, one of the things that they also have is a huge customer loyalty base. One of the big things is today many of us continue to use their products and their software mostly out of habit maybe, or even because we know that we can use their software to accomplish the tasks we need. Moving on, we're going to actually take this grid again, and we're going to kind of fill it to show all the things, because this is where the real power of toes kicks in here as we continue to compare opportunities and threats against weaknesses and strengths, and how Microsoft can use the things that in those categories to help continue to move the company. For instance, if we take weaknesses and opportunities, we can see here some of the big ways, they need to counter these weaknesses as best they can using their opportunities. To do this, one of the big things, especially in this category, would be acquisitions. The ability that Microsoft has to overcome its ability for slow innovation due to its need to continue to build its continuing products right now, and then also stay up on the competition. We see this in things like in Microsoft's most recent acquisition with LinkedIn, where Microsoft felt the need to get into the social market, and Microsoft did not have any kind of vehicle for that yet, so they acquired LinkedIn, as most of their users actually are on LinkedIn, and so it became a very good fit for them to go for that. Strengths, opportunities. In this next one here, we see that some of these, because Microsoft is so big, this also creates our opportunities for them to also gain power through acquisition, as there are small companies that would love to be part of the Microsoft brand and have their giant user base. Weaknesses and threats is another one here, where Microsoft has to be able to change from its competitors, and this is some of the hard things that Microsoft continues to actually struggle with, but their brand perception isn't always 100% positive. And some of those things that they need to work on, especially when they talk about their threats, is making sure that they can do things to increase their brand perception against those threats, those alternatives and competitors that are going to face. And lastly, we're going to talk about strengths and their threats here. Because Microsoft is actually so big, such a large user base and things like that, those are huge advantages for them against their threats. And if Microsoft continues to focus on those strengths against threats, it will continue to thrive in its industry. Anyway, so that is just a quick, brief snippet of TOES. There's much more information that you can gather from this, but you can see the strength of how TOES helps us organize this thought process. Now to introduce VRIO. Now Microsoft's VRIO is talking about, is it valuable? Is it rare? Is it imitable? And is the organization effective? As we continue to talk about VRIO, I hope that we can show how Microsoft fits in this grid. Now I will go ahead here into valuable in the VRIO. And one of the big things too, I will actually, from Brian Harry, one of the Microsoft presidents, talks about, we could not be successful without an incredibly valuable and engaged group of people working with us. So one of the big things as far as resources go that make Microsoft really valuable, especially in their early infancy, was they had a lot of this skilled labor on their side, which was at that time a very rare thing, as computers were new and they were kind of just inventing things as they went along. But this kind of focus on the company and the people they're working with helps show how they can continue to keep that resource theirs too. One of the other things to mention is that Microsoft has always offered great benefits to their employees to help increase the motivation to have those employees and to move on. All right, and I am going to now hand it off to Tom to finish out with the rest of the VRIO.
Hello, this is Tom here in the group. I am going to finish up with the RIO and the VRIO. Jumping into rarity. So Microsoft Office Suite. This is definitely the most dominant form that most businesses, universities, grade schools, anybody utilizes for productivity. In the early days, as people adopted Word, it became more and more valuable to users. Their documents were readable on more and more systems, and it is basically the standard for productivity and what everybody utilizes now. Microsoft HoloLens. It is extremely rare. This is for your viewing pleasure. I'm going to show you guys a little video. I'll be talking, there is no audio for it, but I'll be talking about it. This is what HoloLens does. You put it on your head, and it's virtual reality, and it interacts with your world. It's extremely cool. This is what I did most of my projects on. I talked about the HoloLens, and it's different from any other type of virtual reality because it actually interacts with your world. As you can see, she's building a motorcycle, and then also NASA here. They are exploring Mars utilizing the HoloLens. It's extremely cool, and it interacts with the world around you. It's not just something you put on your head and sit down and see things. So Microsoft HoloLens is one of a kind. It's extremely rare, and Microsoft Server, it's a way to power your business and customize it the way that you need it. So these are just 3 small examples of how Microsoft is rare. Moving on to imitability, it's hard to mimic Microsoft software suites. So the alternatives to Word are LibreOffice, Google Drive, AbiWord, Zoho Docs, and Scribus. So these are all good, but nobody, I don't want to say nobody, but most people don't use them. Like I said previously, Microsoft Office is the standard for productivity. Apple actually has made a deal with Microsoft to allow for the new iPad Pro, which is to replace your traditional laptop, to actually interact with Microsoft Office on a touch basis, as well as the Apple Pen and your traditional method by keyboard. So it's hard to mimic the software Microsoft Office has. It's just, no one's going to mimic it. They're going to adopt it, much like Apple has done. So Microsoft has a large user base. I wanted to show you guys these stats here. Mac OS X, and whether it's 10 or 10.11, they only have like a 6% share of the market for operating systems, and as you can see, there's Windows 8, Windows XP, Windows 10, Windows 7, the dominant share, and then your other, which is 5.83% of the market share of other operating systems. Those are like Linux or Ubuntu. Those are other systems, but you can see that Microsoft has a huge user base, and it's very difficult to be able to imitate something like that, especially with Mac being, it's getting more popular, but it's not even a competitor to Microsoft. And then the Microsoft brand, they've had a few bad hits due to the Windows Phone that had a lot of complaints, and other products of theirs that didn't go so great, such as Windows Vista, the Zune, if anybody remembers that product, and other failed operating systems. However, with the success of Word, Access, Excel, PowerPoint, Windows 7, Internet Explorer, SQL Server, Surface, Xbox, and including charitable acts for business, as well as Bill Gates himself donating billions of dollars on his own accord, it's been a huge success and has boosted the overall brand name extensively. Moving on to organization, Microsoft is now a multi-divisional form, so each business sector can operate independently of one another, but they still report to central command. So that actually sounds like, you guessed it, a coordinated federation from Chapter 10 of our textbook, which is where the operational decisions are delegated to the divisions and the strategic decisions are done by the corporate headquarters. The department is very focused, so this allows each team or division to focus solely on their departments to make any improvements necessary and to be able to be responsible for their departments and the department focus. So gives them an opportunity to really just hone in on their skills for each department. They've got a clean flow of communication between departments and the CEO. Since Microsoft has a horizontal management infrastructure, it allows each department to make quick and easy for all people to communicate freely and quickly with one another in their line of work, including for quick information to pass to high-ranking officials or executives in the corporation. So, moving on. With the organization, is Microsoft a firm that is organized to exploit the full competitive potential of its resources and capabilities? Definitely. So our recommendations are brand perception, focus. Microsoft has a great brand name, but they are known for some flops, like the Zune and certain OSs. So to continue raising the value of the brand name, they should focus more on compatibility and reliable products. They should continue acquisitions, as they've done with Skype and Nokia and others like that, to be able to be competing with big businesses such as Facebook, Google, and others. And Microsoft, so it's a software company, and they use suppliers to provide for the hardware of their products, such as Dell. Apple designs the housing of their computers, the microprocessors, the software, and they put everything together in-house. Whereas Microsoft does not do that. They only design the software, and then they contract other people just to build the computers, so it's not a seamless product. Apple, they have their software and their hardware designed for each other, which makes a seamless product. So if there is any recommendation, I'm sure that Microsoft could put some capital towards a research and development department to really hone in on those skills. Returning back to the VRIO, are they valuable, rare, imitable, and do they have an organizational setting to utilize their skills? Absolutely, and this, we believe, will give Microsoft a sustained competitive advantage. Thanks so much for listening. Here's our works cited. Thank you.